I was in my late 20s and at art school. I played guitar and wrote songs, and I met Kathy Cox through an ad she put into the local paper. It was a song competition and you had to write a song about Austin. So I did, and I sent it in on cassette tape. And I never heard back from her. So I called her up and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And she said, "Oh, I never got your tape, and I've just given the prize out to the only contestant." And she apologised profusely. About a month later, I went to a women's festival in Maruya and bumped into Kathy there. That's when we wrote our first song, and we continued to collaborate after that. Kathy met Cheryl Harvey, who played violin, and it wasn't long before the three of us had a jam. Kathy played banjo and then later guitar.
Looking for a guy now to wash my clothes, iron my shirts and blow my nose, sweep the floor and wax the kitchen, while I sit playing the banjo and bitchin', feet on the table, mud on my boots, just doing my thing.
And I wasn't that keen on banjo, but she somehow worked it into our set of indie folk punk songs really well. For our stage concept, we used a picture from an old-fashioned magazine of a girl in a corset. It ended up on many posters. We eventually wore them on stage too. I liked using the housewife theme on stage as well, so we often had ironing boards with clothes hanging off them. Kathy Cox had a fun personality. She loved to party, and her Hawaiian-American background was really electrifying. She was a great motivator. She bought the PA for the band. She worked as a teacher and had 3 kids and a husband to look after, so she was a busy mum. I was a student and I had no income, but I was creative and wrote lots of songs for the band, and so did Kathy. And Cheryl was a terrific violinist. We had potential written all over us. Our biggest gig was for the Lismore Women's Music Festival. It was huge. Hundreds of women showed up. We were this little trio, but we rocked the house. I had never heard such amazing applause. We just came out of nowhere and bedazzled them. This led to a tour of Nimbin and a 2-day recording session at Bush Track Studios. We'd made our first cassette, and we'd gotten into the papers and Radio National, thanks to our biggest supporter at the time, Kathy Stavro.
I'm weeping for my mother, for her sweet tears, falling as acid rain.
We also had Kerry Hill on backing vocals for Turn Green. But very early on, my relationship with Kathy had a kind of Steppenwolf resemblance. It started with just a few quips here and there, disagreements, and it was hard to know why the disagreements were happening. It wasn't long before Cheryl left, and it was hard to accept that considering we were doing so well. She was the most professional musician in the band, and she had lots of contacts. We lost a great player, and it didn't help. Kathy and I kind of stumbled through as a duo, and we had to try and get more women to join the band. Denise Thomas, a guitarist who also played saxophone a bit, had played a few gigs with us and continued in the Strumettes after Cheryl left. For a while we had Shana Rowe on bass, and occasionally we were a trio with Rosie Wells on tin whistle. We had Amanda Townsend on percussion, And these girls would come and join us whenever they could make it. 3 in the band had kids that were there in rehearsals and would run around or be told, go and play. Lots of interruptions. We then got bass player Marianne Cornford, and later we added Melinda Wishart. But we could never get a drummer, so we fluctuated from doing folk to rock. We'd sound more rock if we had a drummer, and sometimes we borrowed drummers from other bands, usually guys.
1, 2, 3, 4. Up, 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 up. Up, 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 up.
We did a gig at Austinmere RSL Club, and it was a great turnout. But unfortunately it was a farewell gig for Amanda, who was leaving us to go up north.
Up, 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 up. Up, 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 up. Going up, up, up.
I think we really struggled to keep the remaining girls in the band for so many reasons. Denise was also a solo artist anyway, and she quietly made it clear that our band wasn't her top priority. And I think the disagreements Kathy and I had might have upset her. I'm not sure, but we were back to being a duo so often. It was at this point that we knew we just couldn't keep trying to be an all-girl band. So we got Peter Knox on bass from the Zazov Brothers and George Babbage, known as George Blues, for guitar. We then had 2 female drummers consecutively and very briefly, and out of that, Sweep was made into a video. But we were coming to an end as a band. The drive just wasn't there. The men that were playing with us were filling in. We had bits of recordings from a new album we'd started at Coronel Studios, never quite finished. And we had Robbie Lovelace as our drummer and Glenn Bowker on lead guitar as well, and they were just great. But they were all too busy with other bands to join us. Plus, we were burnt out. We wanted to have a girls' band, but it was just not happening anymore. Some moved away and had more babies. Others were off doing a PhD to get better jobs so they could pay the rent. Kathy and I were really not on the same page, and our differences were affecting our continuation. My personal life was also crumbling, and I had to leave Wollongong to pursue work in Sydney. That was pretty much the end of the Strumettes, a wonderful, amazing, creative and inspiring all-girl band.